I had sex today. It was great. By Vengeful Spirit. Twilight, Twilight, Twilight! Pinky shouted, bursting through the front door of the Ponyville library. She tumbled head over hooves for a moment before coming to stop in front of her friend. What is it, Pinky? The purple mare asked, trying too hard not to make eye contact with the local eccentric. It wasn't working. Twilight, guess what? You ate a cupcake? No, well, yes, actually, but that's not why I'm here. Well, then why are you here, Pinky? To tell you something, duh, the pink apocalypse stated, like it was obvious, which, to be fair, it kinda was. Silly Twilight, I thought you were a genius. I am. Pinky, what are you going on about? I had sex today! Twilight's brain shut off momentarily as it tried to both process the fact that Pinky was so blatantly announcing her act to the world and the fact that any pony in their right mind would have sex with Pinkie Pie in the first place. The former was probably actually a bit understandable given how Pinky couldn't keep quiet about anything, but the latter was still a mystery. Okay, hold up a second, Twilight said, grabbing her bouncy friend in her hooves. Who did you have sex with? Pinky just giggled at that. Oh, you're so silly. I had sex with a really cute alicorn. She was so flustered about it, but we had a great time. What? Finding out that Pinky's fuck buddy was an alicorn narrowed the possibilities down immensely. Given the fact that she hadn't been the one to sleep with her friend, that only left Cadence, Celestia, and Luna as the culprit. You slept with an alicorn? Twilight almost screeched. Pinky, what are you thinking? That's just asking for all kinds of political backlash. Imagine what it'll be like to have your face plastered over every tabloid in existence. Silly Twilight, it won't end up in a tabloid. No pony caught us. How do you know? They might have hidden cameras. There might be secret agents, changeling spies, or worse. What if the princess you slept with is a changeling? Pinky tapped Twilight's horn roughly, eliciting a mumbled "ouch" from her friend. She stared at the egghead for a moment before chuckling. Nope, she's not a changeling. Pinky, how does tapping my horn have anything to do with your sex part and not being a changeling? Oh, silly, it has everything to do with it. Twilight was about to comment on that before remembering Pinky was being Pinky and let it go at that. Trying to understand the pink mare would be tantamount to popping her brains out, mixing them with some spaghetti stew and then throwing them in a tornado-powered meat grinder. In short, it would be fruitless. Well, alright then, she said, putting a placating hoof on Pinky's shoulder to calm her down. Care to tell me about it? Of course, Pinky said before starting her narration. We were having an argument over my pinky sense when I finally decided to get to the good part and kiss her, like this! The pink mare dove forward, her lips meeting Twilight's before the latter had any chance of escape. She felt the soft feminine flesh of Pinky's mouth meeting her own, their tongues battling for dominance in the greatest testicular war in recent history. Eventually, the enemy surrendered, and the lavender alicorn was left speechless as her friend pulled back. What was that? She asked. The first part, silly! And what was the second part? Twilight asked, trying to feign disinterest. If the second part was any as good as the first, she wanted to hear the full story. Well, it'd been a long time since the cute mare had been intimate with any pony. Her friends were few and far between, and she only just started to come out of her shell a few years ago. Twilight realized that Pinky might just be talking about Luna. It would make sense that she would be pretty lonely, especially given how long she'd been away, and how much of a barrier she'd made between herself and every pony else after spending the better part of an eon floating around on a rock in interterrestrial space. What happened then? She asked. Well, I did this! Pinky put a hoof on her friend's shoulder, motioning for her to lie down on the library's nearest sofa. Twilight acquiesced, more than happy to meet Pinky's wishes if it led to more of what they've already experienced. She lay down, waiting patiently as her friend straddled her. And then I asked her if she'd be willing to go further, like this. Pinky touched her lip lightly against Twilight's, sensually caressing her mouth. She then pulled back, looking down at her companion. Twilight, do you want to go further? Twilight was breathing heavily at this point, her bosom heaving as the blood roared in her ears. She wanted Pinky to love her so badly, to hold her tightly and never let go. More than anything else, she wanted Pinky to be more than a friend to her. Yes. Pinky kissed her deeply, letting her mouth do its magic as she traced a hoof down Twilight's side. It settled comfortably between the purple princess's legs, rubbing up and down on her already sopping vulva. Pinky! She cried out as she felt the tender marehood being violated for the first time. It felt so very wrong, so very against everything her parents ever taught her about reproduction. At the same time, she'd never quite felt so right. Yes, Twilight? The pink mare in question asked, continuing to play with her best friend's genitals. Is there something you needed? Yes! Twilight answered, thrusting her hips up to meet Pinky's hoof. She grounded against the hardened keratin, hoping to relieve that burning feeling in her vagina. I need more. Okie dokie dokie. Pinky went to work like a mad mare. Rubbing harder, she ground her hoof against Twilight's foal in time with her thrusting, always pushing just at the right time to send little flickers of pleasure down the princess's spine. It was far too much for Twilight's inexperienced brain to handle. Twilight shouted, rubbing her hips against Pinky's body as she came. She panted heavily as the blood started to return to her brain, leaving her both exhausted and a bit excited for more. Pinky, what was that? Your first orgasm, silly! But it happened so fast, Twilight complained. Is sex always that fleeting? Yes and no. Your first climax is always the most spectacular. You've never felt it before, so your body doesn't know how to keep you from reaching it immediately. Pinky kissed her mare friend deeply, enjoying the tender moment where Twilight was nothing but putty in her hooves. Fortunately for us, an equine mare can have several orgasms in a row without having to wait for a recharge. Can we have another go? Pinky giggled. Funny, but the other mare said the same thing. Please? Yes, of course, my love. This time, Pinky turned around and presented her own pussy to Twilight's face, her arousal more than obvious. Twilight stared at it, wondering what she was supposed to do. Oh, I almost forgot. You'll need to lick me clean from our earlier practice. I got a bit horny from it, and it'll be really mean of you to leave me hanging. Pinky looked over her shoulder, winking at her. I'll lick you clean at the same time so we both can enjoy the experience. Okay, Twilight responded, hoping that she'd got everything right. Here's to nothing. Her mind exploded in a symphony of color and intense pleasure as Pinky's tongue pulled along the length of Twilight's labia. It took a moment for her mind to clear enough for her to return the favor. She pulled Pinky's hips down close enough to get to work and dove in with a gusto. The library remained still after that, the silence only broken by the wet sounds of licking and the occasional moan of pleasure. The room slowly filled up with the deep, rich scent of filly musk as the two mares enjoyed themselves. When one of them would climax, the other would give them a moment to settle down before going back at it. The room was almost peaceful. It wasn't until after Twilight's seventh orgasm that they finally stopped. Pinky flopped down on top of her mare friend, gently sweeping aside the wet locks Twilight's mane from her eyes. They kissed passionately, enjoying the moment while they could cuddle lovingly. Pinky? Yes, Twilight? Who was the mare you were talking about? It was you, silly! What? Twilight would have sat bolt upright if it weren't for the weight on top of her. Pinky, why did you lie to me like that? No, Twi. I didn't lie to you. I just said that I had sex today. Not who I had it with. My pinky sense told it this was you. And that we would enjoy it. But you didn't. Pinky cut her off with another kiss. Wrapping her hooves around Twilight's neck, she held her tightly for a moment before pulling back. Didn't you enjoy it? She asked. Well, yeah, I think I really did, Twilight responded. Then my pinky sense didn't lie about anything. They snuggled tightly, enjoying the moment. Twilight could feel her friend's heartbeat almost matching her own, their bodies softly brushing fur between them. Pinky felt so warm, and it felt so very right. I love you, Pinky. I love you too, Twi. The end!